Hello, welcome to the realm of ideas is free to all. This is the preview for episode 74, The Times of Novel Utility. Do me a favor. I'm going to
Yeah.
unplug this. This is like,
What?
doesn't look great in terms of the light. but I
No,
have
it
to plug
looks
this
like
in.
we're dead. I mean, or ghosts.
Mhm.
I don't. That light needs to be on because it's a better light. These are not good for this. Was that light unplugged?
Mhm. Let's see. There it is.
Do you need a flashlight?
No, got it. Okay. So I'll turn that on.
I thought that this light was kept plugged in. I thought that this was always kept plugged in because it lights up the room.
Okay. I needed it because I needed the. All right, so here we are. The Realm of Ideas is free to all. This is episode 74, the preview for The Times of Novel Utility. Last week we talked about activities, and we left it as I saw it. I saw our activities as a question. This is a series of ruminations we do about ideas related to our work and things in general. And Julie and I are both kind of, I guess, interdisciplinary researchers in art, architecture, science, and various other things. And we express that through drawings, paintings, models, buildings, things like that. Oh, hey. So, as a result, this is kind of like our another question: the times of novel utility, and what are our constitutional circumstances? Is this a situation where we are in a place where novel utility has a purpose? And if it has a purpose, what could that be? Right? I believe that at a certain point, people grow a certain dissatisfaction with things. And as a result, they start to kind of foray into different places. So, let me explain what I mean by novel utility. At certain times, it was actually a brilliant show that's just opened at the Metropolitan Museum on Gothic drawings, and it's even more so than about the architecture. It's about the device of drawings being used to express new aspirations. What you notice is you find that there's, regardless of the inabilities of drawing, the aspirations were quite clear. And you think to yourself, that was a time of a novel utility. At that point, that group of individuals were able to kind of desire something that had not been seen before. Are we in that time? I believe we are. I believe that desire and of the times of novel utility is an indication that we are embarking on a new epoch, a new time. So that's kind of like what this show on Sunday will be about. So, Julie, based on that, what I've just explained, how would you see this title, or what would this title mean for you?
Well, I'd like to put this in a vein of history and literature and actually Japanese philosophy.
Mhm.
So in Japan, I'll trade you a sip.
Okay.
Okay.
It's time for I had a golden oolong, which I hadn't had in a long time.
What was your thought?
I loved it. It was actually kind of like quite smooth and quite refreshing. Now, of course, my number one refreshing is mint, and I'm so looking forward to having mint for the summer, because I really feel that, especially chilled. Most of them I drink at room temperature, but I really think that in the summer, having one that's a little bit, below room temperature is of definite value.
Yeah, you have a refrigerator.
Mhm.
So
I have a refrigerator at work, which actually I had many people
Yeah.
helping me with today.
And I got them.
Thank you, Maria.
gifts.
Thank you, Alicia.
Okay. And Maria's son. I don't know his name.
I forgot his name.
I hope he likes
tell
cake.
Maria.
Everyone likes chocolate and cake.
Right. So
Anyway, I will continue. In the Japanese philosophical canon, there is a long history of thought on repurposing items, repurposing paintings, repurposing architecture, engineering that is literally about novel utility, most Japanese architecture is convertible.
Mhm.
It's incredibly adaptable. And in fact, things are multi use almost all the time, not just because they have teeny tiny little spaces in a very cramped, crowded megacity like Tokyo, even in the countryside where you can build a house of, larger rooms and proportions, there is a keen Japanese sense of configuration, and I think they actually take a lot of pride in their they truly excel at the configuration of personal environments, and nothing speaks about novel utility more than one's intimate personal environment, where they live, where they work, how they read, how they intellect. And, intellection is a verb. So when a god or goddess is repurposed, reimagined, reinvented to conform to human utilities, mortal needs, and to satisfy novel human utilities, that god is, and here is the biological segue, as we are interdisciplinary thinkers, that God is transcribed and translated in accordance with mortal novel utilities as per protein transcription, protein translation, and the transcription of DNA. So it really is the same process, in fact.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So I think again, there's a potential in the operations of mechanisms in Japan to give us a hint as to what that could conceivably be in terms of novel utility. I think that in the 20th century, the beginning of the modern age, architects looked, especially Frank Lloyd Wright, looked to the works in Japan, looked especially at the Couture Villa and things like that, where he saw the kind of like what I would call compositional or spatial transparency of the way in which houses were constructed, so that in fact a house did not have to have what I would call a long path of activity spaces. It could basically have a critical path of activity spaces. And what I mean by that is that all the activities could happen in a way that they were sequential, as opposed to basically being separate. So if I needed a room that was 10 by 10, but then I need a room at 10 by 100, I could do those things within the idea of just simply manipulating the rooms. That was the spatial or kind of like compositional transparency that modern architecture understood and took from Japanese architecture. Japan, I think, has given us a possibility again in the fact that folding, or I would say origami, which is something that's a kind of common thing, has given us the idea of being able to encapsulate the ideas of kind of mobility and constructability. And as a result, the ability to move quickly, assemble quickly, disassemble, more nomadic potential is a way in which this kind of novel utility could express itself. So I think folding has certainly had a great kind of like success in computer space, in kind of like engineered space, but has really kind of only started to scratch the surface in architectural space. As I go to architectural reviews in the last several years, I mean, the last decade, it's common for people to play with the idea of folding, but they don't go deep into it. I think what happens is that's kind of something we see in computer science, we see in engineering, but I think what happens is maybe it's because of the fact that they didn't really understand the utility of the Katsura space, the transparency and spatial kind of like opportunity, that they really are not able to kind of understand the folding. One of the things that Julie talks about really beautifully and eloquently is the idea
Thank
of
you.
natural space. And natural space folds, it folds at multiple scales, it folds at self-similarity. These are things that are really not understood within the architectural environment yet. We're still kind of like captured in one space, in one scale. And one of the things that was interesting was the Gothic architects were not, though they were too dependent on geometry and not on structural formality. They were capable of understanding self-similarity, even though the idea was not to basically really exist for kind of several hundred years. Anyway, that's what I have to say. I think it's going to be, I'm really excited because I got a whole bunch of notes and I can't wait to kind of elaborate on these things on Sunday. So this is one of the ones I'm looking forward to. And again, thank you to our partner and our kind of sponsor, Tees Tea. You guys are the greatest. Thank you for all the gifts. And, you know, we look forward to a long and prosperous kind of friendship and collaboration. Say, last word.
Sure, yes.
Bye, Pete.
I will be discussing, as we are on Saturday, the very apropos work of Maurice Maeterlinck, one of our favorite Belgian naturalists and philosophers and writers of science and nature, specifically because most of Maeterlinck's work, he wrote of novel utilities all the time in nature and science. He was an expert, that's so cute, of writing about literary framing of natural adaptation, his prose of metamorphoses, his plays and his operas and his librettos about epigenetic utilities across what I call the natural spectrum, which includes old-fashioned flowers, drama and theater, the nature of women, portrait of a lady, one of our favorites.
Speaking of which, I think our friend Kevin might be a libretto.
That's funny. So yeah, you know, in The Life of the Bee, the life of the white ant, and a white ant, for those of you who don't know, is the scientific name for a termite. And when Maeterlinck wrote about these things, he was not writing dry scientific, you know, factual prose. What he wrote was absolutely true.
Illustrates, bring some examples of that for Sunday. That's a really great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Bring some examples of that. You know, write that down, because I think that's really key. Because I think, again, one of the things that I think gives rise to the interdisciplinary potential is the idea of people not getting stuck in their institutions. One of the things I've said time and time again is that the modern movement did not grow out of the institutions. It grew out of individuals who basically had forgone the institutions and basically felt dissatisfied with that. I believe the same thing is going to happen now. And I'm seeing, as I've said before, more and more people dissatisfied with the institutions, with the parochialism, with the kind of dogmatism, and just kind of feeling completely unsatisfied, completely unchallenged. And they're turning inwards towards their own technique to kind of generate provocative abstractions. I think the provocative abstractions in terms of architecture would be novel utility. And I think that in each case, those things will actually come. The dissatisfaction will lead to that taking place. All right.
I will say my final word.
Say.
Is Maeterlinck excelled at, and I believe the many things that you have written, and you are an excellent scientific essayist. In fact, you had written that 2-page introduction to my painting Necessaire for Nod Factors, which I think you should actually read on Saturday.
Scientific essayist.
Yeah, and I will say it here, the scientific essay as novel messenger of vital information. That is the ultimate novel utility.
I like that. Yeah, because, you know, one of the things that you said, and you said this before, it's very apt now, is that, you know, scientists are terrible writers.
Yeah,
and I think it's because they kind of think a lot of times they're limited to a certain kind of pinched language, or kind of that they really don't feel they can work without, you know,
literally a template.
Yes,
that
exactly. So I mean, I think
into.
that term, scientific essayist, I mean, I would love to basically kind of like be you know, honored by such a term. You know, I love
believe that you are very good at that.
The realm of ideas is free to all, and it's to the benefit of all for us to keep it that way.
Maeterlinck.
Yes. See you.